When Amazon first started, they had a very specific ideal customer profile. They sold books online. And this is at a time when very few people actually bought things online. It was a very weird thing to do. Fast forward to today, Amazon today sells everything to everyone, nearly everywhere. This is the power of a proper ideal customer profile. They focused in a very specific niche, and over time, they expanded that ideal customer profile for world domination. Here's a big question though. How do you pick your niche? How do you make sure you're not leaving money on the table? You're not going too small? And how do you make sure you're not going too big? This is the power of a proper ideal customer profile exercise. In this episode, I'm gonna walk you through the 3 principles that you absolutely need to know on how to build an ideal customer profile for your SaaS and AI business. And when you watch till the end of this episode and implement these principles, you will be able to accelerate your path to that next stage of growth. Intro. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Unstoppable. I'm TK, and on this channel, I help SaaS and AI founders like you grow your businesses faster with an unstoppable strategy. Now, if you're new to this channel, welcome. I drop an episode every single Sunday with actionable strategies and tactics from the trenches on how to grow your business faster. So be sure to hit that subscribe button and that bell icon. That way you'll get notified every single time I drop an episode with the TK energy. Now, if you're already part of this community, if you're part of my SaaS go-to-market coaching program, my people, welcome back. It's really awesome to see you over here. I was at a dinner recently with members of my go-to-market program in New York. We found this cool restaurant, we all got together, and we were all just comparing notes, sharing strategies, sharing lessons learned as folks were going through the program. Some of them had only been with me for a few months and were in the early stages of implementing inside of my go-to-market program. Others had been working with me for years and have been scaling their businesses. The big topic of discussion, the ideal customer profile. Now, don't get me wrong, this wasn't me over dinner teaching them how to do an ideal customer profile. We have a lot of training around that. This was them sharing how transformational an ideal customer profile has been for their business. The early stage folks really got insights on exactly how to structure their message so that they can speak to a specific group of people and get more traction. The later stage folks told me how they've added millions of ARR just by the ideal customer profile exercise because it really clarified their thinking on exactly what they were doing and who they were serving in the market. So in this episode, after years of doing hundreds of ICPs, after incorporating the ICP exercise in all the companies that I run, after seeing so many nuances, I'm gonna share with you 3 principles that you absolutely need to know on how to build out your ideal customer profile. So if you're excited to dig in, go ahead and smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. It just loves it when you do that. And let's dig right into it. So principle number 1 is to really understand where people go wrong in an ideal customer profile. A lot of times they think that their total addressable market, which is this large circle right here, is the same as their ideal customer profile, which is this tiny little speck over here. One of the scariest things as a founder is to think too small. You're like, no, TK, our product can be used in so many different ways. So many different people can use it. We can disrupt so many different industries. But we really need to figure out how to get that first customer or that first 100 customer or the next 1,000 customers. And therein lies the rub. If you try to be everyone to everybody, even if your product can be valuable to them, then no one will pay attention to you. This is why that saying, the riches are in the niches, stands out so much, especially in the early stages of growing a SaaS business. So the big thing that we really focus on when you're building out an ideal customer profile is asking, where is the problem that we're solving the most urgent? Where is it the most important? And also, where are they the most underserved? Meaning it's not as competitive. This is what makes for a really great start to an ideal customer profile. And the biggest thing I have to remind founders when we're really helping them build their ideal customer profile is, look, this little speck is not you forever. Let's just say you are at $100,000 in ARR. Let's just figure out what your ideal customer profile is going to be to get to $1 million. Let's just say you're at $1 million. Let's figure out what you need to do to get to 3. If you're at 3, let's get to 10. And over time, you can expand this circle and start playing in different areas. One of the things I always get asked is, TK, can I go after 3 ideal customer profiles? I have 3 ideal customer profiles. They're all very lucrative opportunities, so I'd like to go after all 3 of them. And my answer always is, of course you can, but it really is limited not by your ability to go after 3, but the amount of bandwidth you and your team have. And a lot of times I work with early stage founders and they say, look, I only have this one other person and we're just trying to figure it out. And we have a certain number of marketing dollars and we really want to start with organic. So in that case, you can't go after 3, because if you try to go after 3, your messaging will be diluted and your targeting will be all over the place. When you think about companies like Amazon today, the example I used in the beginning of this episode, they go after lots of different ICPs. They have lots of different businesses, but they have entire armies, not even teams, armies of marketers that are targeting those specific ICPs. So in the early stages, what you're really trying to do is recognizing the total addressable market you can go after, but really identifying what segment of the market, what specific part of the market is the problem that we're solving the most urgent, the most important, and they're underserved because the other competitors are just not serving them in the right way. Now, this is something that I struggle with myself in my own SaaS journey. My last company, ToutApp, we pioneered the sales engagement space, but there was an entire period of time where we hadn't crafted the category yet. Outreach, SalesLoft, Yesware, and all those other incredible companies, they hadn't entered the game yet. We were just trying to figure it out. And in those cases, the idea of sending the same email over and over, templates, or sending a sequence of emails was applicable to a lot of people. It could have been targeting recruiters, HR people, salespeople, you name it. And to be honest, we saw that massive opportunity. That's why we were able to raise venture capital from the likes of Andreessen Horowitz. But we also knew that we were diluting ourselves. And in order to grow, we really had to double down. So when we looked at all the customers that we had, we started to see some patterns around what the specific segment of the market we needed to target on. And sometimes, even if a market looks small, it could end up being a multi-billion-dollar category. So for us, we were like, no, we really don't want to let go of HR. That's like a big market. We don't want to be just for salespeople because all these other people can use it. But in reality, sales engagement today is over a $5 billion category just serving salespeople. And we left out a lot of people. And even still, it ended up being a really large market. Building an ideal customer profile, one of the toughest things to do is get out of your head on something being too small and just thinking in terms of how do I just get to that next stage of revenue? Let's build an ideal customer profile for that. And once we're getting success in a certain segment, we can always expand. We'll always have more resources and we can always hire more teams and more armies to go after more verticals or more segments of the market. And so that's principle number 1, really differentiating between your total addressable market, your ideal customer profile for when you're at scale, and just your ideal customer profile to get from your current revenue stage to that next stage of growth. So that's principle number 1. Principle number 2, when I work with founders, they almost always come to the table with 2, 3, 4 different ICPs that they could go after. So very rarely is it just this one black dot. They're like, well, we could also do this or this or this or this. What you face there is what I call a strategic inflection point. To put it, a simpler way to put it is like, I just literally don't know what to do and I don't want to screw this up. A lot of the times founders work with me because they're really trying to reduce execution risk. They're like, look, I don't want to make a dumb mistake here. These all look good. So this is where principle number 2 comes in. And it's actually really interesting. Regardless of the revenue stage you're in, and I've worked on ICPs out SaaS business at 450 million in ARR, what you have is some data. And so what you can do is, along with the qualitative data that you have, you can also look at your quantitative data. So one of the things I like to do is I like to look at the data in terms of, let's just say we have ICP 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. What you can look at is what's our win rate? What's our churn rate? You can even look at what's our average contract value, meaning how much do we earn per customer when they come on? And over time, you can even look at your LTV. Now, when I'm working with a $20 million business, they have a lot of data. When I'm working with a business that's at maybe 100K in ARR, they don't have as much data, but they're always shocked at how much data they do have. When you start looking at your won deals and your lost deals and all the opportunities that you've worked, even if your win rate is low, you get a lot of patterns by looking at the data. And between the data and the different possibilities for your ICP, we can have an actual discussion to start to figure out what is our actual ideal customer profile going to be to get to this next stage of growth. And then from there, we can start to iterate. Now, I have a third principle that starts to bring a lot of these pieces together, but let me pause here for a second. Are you starting to see the power in this? The thing is, one of the things I've noticed is over time, and this is my 6th year running Unstoppable, coaching founders, and now we've got SaaS companies and we've got AI companies, we've got tech-enabled services that are building agents. You've got all kinds of companies that at the end of the day are selling some form of software. The principles have not changed. The idea of creating an ideal customer profile is common now. Everyone knows they need to do it. But the biggest mistake that I see now that founders fall into is they think that an ICP is sort of a task that you check off. And that's actually not true. An ICP, yes, you create a document where you write down these things. That is true. The devil is in the details of how you make some of these choices. It's very possible that you have a certain win rate and a certain churn rate and you're like, ICP1 is clearly the winner. But it's also possible that ICP1 is very limited in terms of the total addressable market or the competitive dynamics. So you must go after ICP2. So a lot of times people think that it's just a checklist, and sometimes people say they have an ICP, but they really have like a paper napkin drawing of an ICP. But it's not about writing the stuff out. It's about having the actual strategic discussion around the ICP and making some tough choices. And that's where an ICP really comes alive and starts to positively impact the business. The reason ICP is also super important is it influences everything else. It influences your messaging. If you have a very broad ICP, your messaging is going to be very vague, and therefore it won't resonate in a noisy world. If you don't have a clear ICP or you're going after 3 different ICPs, that's 3 different types of targeting you may have to do in terms of your outbound emails or your organic or even your ads. And at that point, you're limited by budget or the algorithm. And so you get very diluted. So these are all little things that you have to make choices on. And that choice and that discussion around the ICP is what makes for an effective ICP. So if you're starting to see the power in this, and if you're starting to get excited about building your ICP, can I just get a yes in the comments below? And also smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. It just loves it when you do that. And honestly, so do we. We put a lot of love into these videos. Also, if you're in this stage where you have some revenues and you're looking to scale to that next stage, and it's very clear, you have to make some strategic choices about your ideal customer profile, about your messaging, and how you get attention in the world to drive pipeline and leads and drive sales, then you should check out my SaaS go-to-market coaching program. I have both AI companies and SaaS companies in this program. It's an incredible program. It's my 6th year running this program. You don't have to go anywhere right now. I'll link to it below in the description. But right now, let's go to principle number 3, because this one is where a lot of things come together. Now, remember how I was talking about, like, a lot of this is in the discussion. You have some of this data, you have some of this hypothesis on we could be this ICP or this ICP. These are the dynamics. One of the things I've found that's very powerful, I'm gonna use purple for this one, is when I'm having the strategic discussion, a lot of times people want to work with me because I'm their intellectual thought partner. I can keep up with you. I can understand everything that you know because you're bringing it to the table. And I have pattern recognition across hundreds of companies. And they want someone that can spar with them. And one of the things I've found is when we're looking at these options and looking at this data and looking at these hypotheses, there's always a constructive discussion that's emerging around what is our ideal customer profile, but also what is our non-ideal customer profile. Like, what is the opposite of who's definitely not going to make a great customer? And when we're having these discussions, usually I have a whiteboard. We do it around a whiteboard, or we do a Zoom whiteboard. If it's a Zoom call, it varies. What I've found over and over is we end up with sort of a 2x2. And the 2x2 has 2 attributes. There's an X attribute and a Y attribute. And these attributes are different for every company, but it is something that describes different ICPs or different segments of the market. So every ICP, every company has different ICPs you're considering, and they have certain attributes. And those attributes between the X and the Y, this 2x2, helps us understand what is not our ICP and what is definitely our ICP. And that drives an even deeper understanding of who our ideal customer is and why they're our ideal customer. And that's one of the powerful things that I've seen. This is the type of discussion where I realized, even when I got started, like baby TK, was like, I think we just create an ICP and then we follow it. And while that's true, you do firmographic, demographic, psychographic, what's the title, what do they care about? Like all those things are important, but the real unlocks for ICP, the most successful ICP exercises that I've seen come out of the discussion we have where we start to get an understanding on, our ideal customer has these two attributes. Both of these things are true for them, and that's why they're our ICP. When one of them is missing, they're not our ICP. And there's different levels to that, different gradations to that. And that's what really differentiates the companies that kind of go through the motions of an ICP exercise and the companies that truly get a deep understanding of who their ideal customer is, why the problem they're solving is urgent and important, and also why they're underserved by the competition, and therefore they can actually communicate to them in a way that shows that they're going to be served well. That's the power in this, and that's this third principle. Now, you've watched to this point, so I want to give you a bonus one. If I can over-deliver, hopefully that's okay. There's a bonus one that I've seen that has worked incredibly well. And the bonus principle is a lot of times I've seen companies that put a lot of effort into their ICP, and then it kind of just collects dust, meaning in their go-to-market motions, it doesn't follow through. So the best ICP implementation I've ever been part of was when I was in Marketo. So my last company, ToutApp, we pioneered the sales engagement space. We grew it out. We raised from the likes of Jackson Square Ventures and Andreessen Horowitz, and then we sold it to a market leader called Marketo. At that time, Marketo was owned by Vista, a private equity firm, and we were tasked with doing an ICP exercise. Standard playbook for every private equity firm, and now pretty much standard playbook for any go-to-market initiative. You have to start with an ideal customer profile. It's not rocket science. However, think about it, at 450 million ARR, an ICP exercise is one thing, but how do you get the sales reps and marketing, the armies of marketers that we had to pay attention? So a lot of times companies struggle with this, and I saw this even at companies that are at 10 million or 20 million or 50 million ARR that I've worked with. They struggled with mobilizing their ICP once they knew like this is our ideal customer and we want more of them. So what they did is they hardwired it into their go-to-market motions. So what they said was, we're not gonna just reward you marketing for leads, we're gonna reward you for ICP leads. How do you know it's an ICP lead? Well, you could check the firmographic, demographic information and say it's an ICP lead. You could have them self-identify, a little drop box that says, what stage they're in, that'll say if they're an ICP lead. There are a number of ways to do it. But what we did is we said, we're not gonna credit you for just leads, they have to be ICP leads. And all the way down to the opportunities and the salespeople, we said, you know what? And I'm gonna use abstract numbers here, but you'll get the idea. You get 7% commission, Mr. Salesperson, for a normal opportunity, versus you get the full 10% commission on an ICP opportunity. Because we knew our ICP deals had higher win rates, shorter sales cycles, longer lifetime value, lower churn rates. So we're like, we want you to work those and we're gonna give you full commission on that. But you can work any deal you want. So if you wanna go for a non-ICP deal, that's totally cool, but you're gonna get less commission. And almost automatically, what this did was it aligned the entire organization around the ICP that we knew was the right ICP for the next stage of growth. So that's the bonus one. And it's super powerful, especially at the later stages. Like if you're in the super early stages, don't worry about it because it's probably just you figuring this out. But when you start to have reps and marketing teams, you want to mobilize it with this bonus principle. So let's recap here. An ideal customer profile is super important. Big difference here, this is your total addressable market. And the ideal customer profile is your current revenue stage to the next stage you're looking to get to. The best ICPs are where the problem you're solving, every software solves a problem, every AI agent solves a problem, every AI co-pilot solves a problem, every tech-enabled service solves a problem. But the ICP, for that ICP, the problem you're solving is urgent, important, and they're underserved. That's a start. As you start to get different ICPs you can go after, you need to pick one to double down on unless you have armies you can assign to each of them. In that case, you can look at the data. And trust me, if you are at least 100K in ARR, you have a lot more data than you think, even in your lost column. And then as you start to look at the data and you look at the qualitative insights, then you can start to create a 2x2 and have a real discussion about what's your ICP, what's not your ICP, what are the attributes that makes for your best customer. And then once you have the ICP, you want to make sure it doesn't collect dust, you want to mobilize it. You want to make sure you have ICP leads, you're measuring that, and you're looking at ICP opportunities, and everyone knows on the team. And that's how you create your ICP and make sure that it's effective. So now you know the principles that I've learned from nearly 20 years of being in the SaaS industry, working with hundreds of companies on their ICP. And you can start to think about how to craft your ICP. Now, what you may not know is, TK, I have like 4 different ICPs I could go after. I need to pick one. And how do I decipher the data? What are my 2 attributes? I need to talk through this. I want to reduce the execution risk. I want to make sure I'm making the right choice. And I want to be able to measure the right thing so I know I'm making the right choice 3 months from now versus constantly second guessing. And remember, building an ICP is just the first step of your go-to-market machine. Once you have your ICP, then it's about the messaging. What do you say to the ICP to get their attention and differentiate yourself? And then what are the motions to attract that ICP? So there's a whole machine that comes in, and ICP is just a piece of the process. It's super important. So if you're in this stage where you're looking to drive growth for your business and you want help, then you should join my SaaS go-to-market coaching program. Inside this program, you work with me and I teach you how to really build an ICP. And we have the intellectual conversation. We have the discussion on which ICP do we go after based on the data and the chessboard that we face. Once you have your ICP, then I teach you how to build a manifesto. Your manifesto is your messaging, it's your positioning, it's how you attract that ICP, it's how you speak to that ICP. And once you have those 2 pieces, you have your go-to-market strategy. And then comes the 3rd pillar, the execution. I call that a Broadway show. That's a consistent set of sales and marketing activities that you can run to bring your manifesto to your ICP on a consistent basis. You do these 3 things, you have a go-to-market strategy, you're executing on it, and we're tracking the right metrics to figure out when we're on the right track and how to double down and scale. So if you'd like to work together, just go to tkkader.com/GTM. tkkader.com/GTM, and you'll get all the details over there. Now, this is my 6th year running this program. I've got SaaS companies, AI companies, I've even got tech-enabled services companies. What I know is the better the fit, the better the results. So what we ask you to do is look at all the details, and if it's a fit, just fill out the form and book some time with us. On the call, we'll figure out where you are, where you want to get to, and what's got you stuck. And if it sounds like it's a fit, then we're off to the races right away. And we can get to work on your ICP and then your manifesto and then your Broadway show and unlock growth for your business. So just go to tkkader.com/GTM and all the details will be in there. Now, if you got value from this video, please smash that like button for the YouTube algorithm. It just loves it when you do that. And honestly, so do we. We put a lot of love into these videos. If you have a fellow founder, a team member, if you're part of a Slack group or WhatsApp group of other founders that would get value from this video, please share this with them. It would just mean the world to us. Also, I drop an episode every single Sunday with actionable strategies and tactics from the trenches on how to grow your SaaS business faster. So be sure to hit that subscribe button and that bell icon. That way you'll get notified every single time I drop an episode. And lastly, remember, everyone needs a strategy for their life and their business. When you are with us, yours is gonna be unstoppable. I'm TK, and I'll see you inside the SaaS Go-to-Market Coaching Program. Take care, everybody. All right, it's all recording. In business.